Coming up on this Thursday edition of Newsline at noon, President Park Geun-hye makes her first speech at the UN General Assembly, calling for international efforts to tear down the walls that separate the world's only divided nation. The UN Security Council unanimously passes a resolution aimed at blocking the flow of foreign fighters into extremist militant groups in Iraq and Syria. Plus, at the Incheon Asian Games, South Korea adds 3 more goals in the shooting events, and Korea's baseball team inflicts a crushing 10-0 defeat on Chinese Taipei. These stories and more on Newsline at noon. It's noon Thursday, September 25th here in Korea. Thanks for tuning in live from Seoul. I'm Eoh Jin-joo.
It's very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broome. Our top story this afternoon, President Park Geun-hye made her grand debut at the UN General Assembly on Wednesday local time.
The South Korean president used the opportunity to outline her North Korea policies to the international community. Our Choi Sun, who was traveling with the president, filed this report from New York.
While urging Pyongyang to lay down its nuclear arms and to start looking after its people's livelihood, President Park also asked the world leaders for their cooperation in first tearing down non-political barriers between the two Koreas. In particular, she talked about her earlier proposal to build a peace park in the peninsula's demilitarized zone.
UN 주도하에 남북한, 미국, 중국 등 전쟁 당사자들이 참여하여 국제적인 규범과 가치를 존중하며 공원을 만든다면 그것은 한반도 긴장 완화와 평화 통일의 시금석이 될 것입니다.
The president then brought attention to human rights abuses that are prevalent inside North Korea.
또한 국제사회는 탈북민의 인권 문제에도 관심을 기울여야 합니다. 탈북민들이 자유의사에 따라 목적지를 선택할 수 있도록 UN 해당 기구와 관련 국가들이 필요한 지원을 제공해야 합니다.
The Korean president also called past and present wartime sex abuse on women a serious rights issue thought to be an implicit reference to Japan's former enslavement of Korean women. She then promoted her envisioned trust-building process in Northeast Asia amid tensions over historical and territorial differences. Reflecting how far Korea has come since joining the UN 23 years ago, President Park also highlighted Seoul's contributions to various global issues such as sustainable development, climate change, and education. Choi Yoo-sun, Arirang News, New York.
Now, as Yoo-sun just mentioned, things like climate change, Ebola, nuclear disarmament, lots of things going on in New York, and world leaders have a range of issues to tackle at the 69th UN General Assembly in New York. But topping it all was coming up with a united response against Islamic terrorism. And now we're going to connect to our news center to look at this side of the story with our Eunice Kim.
So, Eunice, U.S. President Barack Obama chaired the Security Council meeting on Wednesday local time, but prior to that, he made his case to the General Assembly, urging them to join his mission to confront the Islamic State group.
That's right, Jin-joo. And in response, members of the UN Security Council unanimously approved a resolution that would legally bind all member countries to specific counterterrorism measures. Our Hwang Jie has the story.
Facing the mounting threat from terrorist groups, U.S. President Barack Obama made it clear at the United Nations General Assembly on Wednesday that the U.S. will confront and dismantle Islamic terrorists. He urged nations to reject the cancer of violent extremism.
The only language understood by killers like this is the language of force. So the United States of America will work with a broad coalition to dismantle this network of death.
He went on to asking the world to join the effort.
And already over 40 nations have offered to join this coalition. Today I ask the world to join in this effort.
Following the UN meeting, the Security Council unanimously approved a resolution that calls on countries to adopt laws stating that joining a militant group like the Islamic State is a serious crime for their citizens. Over in Syria, U.S.-led airstrikes continued to hit Islamic State positions on Wednesday. The U.S. Central Command said they pounded a dozen targets in Syria, such as small-scale oil refineries that have been providing millions of dollars a day to the terrorist group. But Islamic State fighters continued to make advances. They have intensified their attacks near the Turkish border in northern Syria, where 140,000 civilians have fled in recent days. Hwang Jie, Arirang News.
Now, as world leaders galvanize against terror at the United Nations, there has been no shortage of threats posed by Islamist extremists in various corners of the globe, demanding a halt to the U.S.-led air campaign against IS. Our Kim Ji-yeon reports.
It has been confirmed that French tourist Hervé Gourdel has been executed by a group in Algeria linked to the Islamic State forces. Gourdel was kidnapped earlier this week by fighters of the Jun al-Khilafah, or soldiers of the Caliphate, who threatened to kill him if France did not end its campaign against IS militants in Iraq. French President François Hollande condemned the brutality of Gourdel's death and vowed to continue his country's military operations against the IS.
Hervé Gourdel is dead because he was French, because his country. France is fighting terrorism. My determination is total, and this aggression only strengthens it. We will continue to fight terrorism everywhere against the Islamic State, which spreads death in Iraq and Syria.
The threat is also spreading to other countries. In the Philippines, an al-Qaeda elite militant group known as Abu Saif says it will kill 2 German hostages, first reported missing in April, unless Germany withdraws its support for U.S.-led airstrikes in Iraq and Syria. They are also asking for a ransom of more than $5.6 million. The Islamic State is also suspected of delivering a threatening letter to the presidential office of the Czech Republic in response to the nation's support for Kurdish forces in Iraq who are fighting the militant group. Local authorities are investigating the contents of the letter, which contained a white powdery substance. But unlike France and Germany, the Czech Republic is not one of the countries participating in airstrikes against the IS. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Stay up to date on the latest news out of Korea, connecting to our team of reporters about the issues that matter to Korea. On air, on your mobile, online. Find out more about Korea on Newsline at noon with Mark Broome and Eoh Jin-joo.
I'm Eoh Jin-joo.
Market researcher, strategy analytics, said Thursday that LG Electronics brought in about... Now, as Samsung and Hyundai go, so goes the Korean stock market most of the time, and with the two companies in recent months turning in some really rather poor performances in a number of areas. The local bourse, the Kospi, has taken a big hit. Connie Kim reports.
The poor performance of the top 2 Korean companies is reshaping the country's stock market. The share movement of Samsung Electronics and Hyundai Motor used to dictate the trend of the Korean bourse, but their influence have recently diminished, with many other companies moving in the other direction. Samsung and Hyundai together accounted for 25% of the overall market capitalization last year, but dramatic drops in their share prices in recent months means their combined share value has dropped to less than 16%. That's because roughly $60 billion have been wiped out in the valuation of the two companies in the past year. In contrast, companies in communications, textile, apparel, banking, and other financial industries have all gained prices by more than 20% in less than 3 months. This is partly because the Korean government began injecting $25 billion into the economy to spur domestic spending and accelerate the recovery. The poor performance by Samsung and Hyundai is blamed partly on a high Korean currency. But share analysts say the main reasons behind their plunge are poor sales of new smartphone and cars rolled out by the Korean electronic and auto giants. Share investors have expressed disappointment for Hyundai's decision to buy a land plot in Seoul at some $10 billion, more than double the widely published market evaluation. Many component makers in the auto and electronics industry saw their shares drop by more than 10% in the past 3 months. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
If you've always wanted to drive a more eco-friendly car but have been put off by the hefty price tag, well, you better listen up to this next story, because the Korean government says it will provide a subsidy of 1 million won, that's roughly $960 to drivers who purchase any one of 8 small and mid-size hybrid car models, and this includes hybrid cars made by Korean automakers such as the Hyundai Sonata, Kia's K5, but also imported vehicles like the Toyota Prius. This comes as the government recently delayed its plan to implement a low-carbon vehicle incentive system. They pushed that back to the year 2020, as Hyundai and Kia are already slashing the prices of their hybrid models. The additional subsidy could, in fact, make eco-friendly cars cheaper than gasoline-powered cars next year. KakaoTalk, Korea's leading messaging service, will launch its mobile banking service next month. According to the nation's financial regulator, the procedures for strengthening security standards will be completed by the end of this month and will be followed by final testing. The service, called Bank Wallet Kakao, will allow users to deposit about $500 into their virtual accounts and make transactions of up to around $100 a day. KakaoTalk has teamed up with 15 local banks and the Korea Financial Telecommunications and Clearings Institute to offer this service.
North Korea's Supreme People's Assembly is set to meet for the second time this year later today, and observers are keeping a close eye on what topics will be included in the agenda. Potential points of interest may be a change in the political power structure, such as the appointment of Hwang Byung-seo as the chief of military politics. We should also see if Park Bong-ju stays on as prime minister and if General Choi Ryong-hae is granted more power after he was appointed as vice chairman of the National Defense Commission following the execution of the North Korean leader's uncle, Jang Song-taek. Also, whether leader Kim Jong-un, who is reportedly suffering from a leg injury and poor health, will make an appearance is also something that needs to be seen. If he does, it'll be the first time he's been seen in public in around 3 weeks. And moving on, South Korea will buy 40 F-35A fighter jets from the U.S. defense firm Lockheed Martin for about $7 billion. Now, under the agreed purchase deal, Lockheed Martin will transfer production technologies in 17 sectors to be used for the nation's next-generation fighter jet projects. The purchase is aimed at replacing the country's aging warplanes and to cope with North Korea's military threats. According to the state-run Defense Acquisition Program Administration, the new fighter jets will be delivered to South Korea between 2018 and 2025. The F-35A is the Pentagon's most expensive aircraft program, and other international buyers include Britain, Israel, Italy, Australia, Canada, Turkey, and Japan. Now, while we're talking about some of the world's most sophisticated military hardware, some of the most powerful and technologically advanced missiles have been used in U.S. airstrikes on Islamic State positions in Syria over the last couple of days. Our Kim Young-gil shows us what these weapons are.
Tomahawk cruise missiles launched by the U.S. Navy from the Persian Gulf and the Red Sea signaled the start of airstrikes in Syria. They are typically used to hit large targets, delivering a bomb explosion after it lands, with little destruction to surrounding structures.
In the first wave of strikes, the USS Arleigh Burke in the Red Sea and the USS Philippine Sea in the northern Arabian Gulf launched more than 40 Tomahawk cruise missiles in eastern and northern Syria.
The F-22 Raptor, Pentagon's most advanced stealth fighter plane, made its combat debut in the sensitive Syria mission. The air combat version of a luxury vehicle, the jet carries air-to-ground missiles and guides bombs capable of precision hits from miles away. F-18 Super Hornet fighter jets, which were used in the Iraqi war, and Predator drones were also part of the U.S. airstrikes.
These strikes were taken as part of the president's comprehensive strategy to degrade and ultimately destroy ISIL and to protect the United States and its partners.
The onslaught of U.S. warplanes against Islamic State strongholds and facilities clearly displays the American military's might in its campaign to bring down the network of enemy forces. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
In a deal that is highly beneficial to both sides, Korea and China decided earlier this year to expand cooperation in joint movie production. Now, what is so exciting about this agreement is that approved films can be officially classified as local films in both countries, meaning Korean movies could more actively reach out to the audience of the world's most populous country. Park Ji-won has the story.
A Wedding Invitation is a film co-produced by Korea and China, released last year. This romantic comedy made a huge splash in China, earning some $36 million, 10 times more than the film's production cost. The film's Korean director Oh Gi-hwan says he changed the film's scenario many times to make it appeal to Chinese viewers.
At first, I tried to remake my previous film, A Gift, but then I realized that the Chinese viewers didn't quite get some parts of the original script due to cultural differences. So I've rewritten almost everything with 3 Chinese scenario writers.
He says it's not easy to strike the right balance between both Korean and Chinese elements in one film, but says tapping into China's fast-growing market is certainly a risk worth taking.
There are forecasts that by 2017, the Chinese film market will be bigger than Hollywood, so it's a challenge that is worth trying.
China raked in some $3.6 billion in box office revenue last year, making it the world's second largest market, growing around 30% annually. And over the next decade, the gap between the Korean and Chinese movie markets will only grow larger. The two countries signed a groundbreaking film co-production pact in July that opened a door of opportunities for Korean filmmakers. But before then, it was difficult to break the wall of China's strict film import quota system.
Due to the film import quota, only about 70 foreign films got the chance to release in China, and half of those spots were taken by Hollywood films. That's why this co-production pact is important, because it helps Korean-Chinese co-productions be recognized as homegrown films.
Another encouraging development for film creators from both countries is a joint investment fund worth nearly $200 million, which will be set up next year for co-production projects.
Both countries share a common goal of stimulating their content's markets through the active exchange facilitated by the joint fund.
The joint film projects are shaping up to be a win-win strategy, allowing seasoned Korean filmmakers to test their creations in a bigger market, while China can gain from Korea's production experience and expertise. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
We're well into day 6 of the action at the 2014 Incheon Asian Games, and we're seeing some truly world-class performances by some of the athletes. Asian records and some world records are being shattered at these games.
Yeah, lots of records are being set, that is for sure. It must be a dream come true, not only to win a gold medal, but to get a world record in the process. For the latest on the games and all the records that are falling, we're joined by our Song Ji-sun, who is following the Asian Games for us.
So, Ji-sun, it was only the quarterfinals, but South Korea set a world record in the women's compound archery team event yesterday.
Actually, this morning, earlier this morning, and it's especially remarkable because in a team that you all have to be good at it, and they were almost nearly perfect on the scoring as the South Korean team scored 238 points out of a possible 240 points, that is, and that was only the quarterfinals against Laos this morning. And making this history was Seok Ji-hyun, Choi Bo-min, Kim Yoon-hee, and Yoon So-jung, who beat the previous world record set by Americans a decade ago. Now, this was only the quarterfinal, and we have the individual round throughout the day, so we're looking for some more records to be broken during the day.
Well, it's a performance like that that really adds to the reputation South Korea has for producing some of the best archers in the world, and let's hope they go one better and actually take the gold medal as well. But congratulations to them.
Right, congratulations. And moving on to baseball, South Korea's baseball team continued their powerful run last night, and it seems that they're pretty unstoppable at the moment.
Right, I mean, they're not allowing a single score from the previous two games, and this time they shut out Chinese Taipei, which is the 2006 Doha champion, whereas Korea is the 2010 Gwangju Asian Games champion. Now, they actually scored 10 runs out of just 8 innings, and that was a called game last night. Now, last night's group match could be seen as a preview of the championship game on Sunday, as Korea is returning to defend their title from Gwangju, and their opponent was the runner-up from the games. Now, with Kia Tigers' Yang Hyun-jong taking the mound, he got some early run supports. South Korea actually scored just 7 runs in the first inning, including Nixon Heroes Kang Jong-ho's 3-run shot, and Tusan Bears' Oh Jae-won adding a 2-run shot as well. Korea's pitching completely shut out their opponents as the game is called after just 8 innings. Not quite as much of a whitewash as the 15-0 5-inning winning against the Thailand the other day, but impressive nonetheless.
Yeah, I think any called game is very impressive, regardless of the sport. And let's turn it over to swimming now. Another big day in the pool. Park Tae-wan at the Aquatic Center, named after him, a legend here in South Korea. And it seems that Park Tae-wan is making a name for himself at this game for winning lots of bronze medals.
Right, although he has not yet garnered a gold medal, he is actually ranking all medals in all events he took part. Although all bronze, he's definitely shooting for a gold this time around in the men's 100-meter freestyle later this evening. Well, but last night he teamed up with his fellow South Koreans, swimming last in the 4x100-meter relay final. Team Korea finished behind China and Japan with a time of 3 minutes, 18.44 seconds, smashing the national record. China, in the meanwhile, broke the Asian Games record with their winning time of 3 minutes, 13.5 seconds. We do hope Park makes a big medal cabinet because he now has a staggering 18 medals from the 3 Asian Games he has taken part in. That's just 1 medal short of the Korean record of 19. And as I said, he may equal that record tonight in the men's 100-meter freestyle. He finished first in this event 4 years ago in Gwangju and holds the game's record. In the qualifiers earlier this morning, he finished fastest with a time just 1 second off that record this morning.
So hopefully we'll be able to see Park Tae-wan winning his first gold in this year's Asian Games. And Jisan, there are plenty of other eye-catching events lined up for today. Tell us more about them.
And we're actually seeing more medal events, and these finals are scheduled in the night because the preliminaries take place in the morning, and we see the roster by the evening who's going to be in the medal events. Let's take a look at for events for tonight. And Park's 100-meter freestyle final is scheduled for 7:24 p.m. tonight, and multi-medalists such as an arch-rival Sun Yang of China and Japan's Kosuke Hagino are not taking part in this race, so Park has a great chance of grabbing his first gold of these games. In fact, he was the only one to qualify with a sub-15-second timeline. In gymnastics, South Korea's Yang Hak-sun is set to face off against North Korea's Lee Se-kwang, and in the men's vault event, that is. Women's floor and beam events are also scheduled for later this night, so stay tuned for some world-class gymnastics action. And now the Korean baseball team will play against Hong Kong at 6:30 this evening after already having sealed the top spot in Group B. This means Korea will face the runner-up team from Group A in the semifinal on Saturday, with the final set for Sunday. Now, these are just few events we picked up for you, so for a full schedule of the events, please visit Incheon 2014 8.com or org.
Well, Ji-sun, I'd wish the Korean baseball team good luck, but I'm pretty sure they're going to win their game. But best of luck to Park Tae-wan in the swimming. And it certainly is getting more and more exciting by the day. And as always,
it is.
Ji-sun, we thank you very much for your coverage, and we'll speak to you again tomorrow, we hope.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
No rain today. We are having beautiful weather, and it should remain beautiful throughout the day across the nation. Well, the light layers of clouds gave way to some sun, and it should remain mostly to partly sunny throughout the day under lots of sunshine and warmer highs. Now, the highs in Seoul, Daegu, and Gwangju will make it to 27, while Busan should top out at 26. Now, for other regions, it looks like Jeju Island and Daejeon should see highs of 25 and 26. And Dokdo peaks at 21. And it looks like this delightful autumn weather will continue throughout the week. So go ahead and plan for your upcoming weekend. And as we can see, Incheon will have a delightful weather over there as well. And as for the weather outlook, we'll enjoy this beautiful weather. So go ahead and plan for your upcoming weekend. That's all for me today. And let's send it back to Mark and Jin-joo in the studio.
Well, thank you very much, Jian, for the weather. And those are stories we're following at this hour.
Mark and I will be back at the same time on Friday.
Until then, goodbye.